Hey everyone, and welcome right back to The Explainer. So today we're diving straight into a topic that is honestly profoundly misunderstood. We are talking about the reality of Victorian post-mortem photography. Now, if you've ever scrolled online, seen these stiff black and white photos and felt completely unsettled, well, it's time to look past all that internet sensationalism. Listen to this phrase: secure the shadow, ere the substance fades. It's a hauntingly beautiful 19th century advertising slogan, and it really perfectly captures the whole emotional core of our explainer today. You see, the substance was the physical body, fragile, temporary, but the shadow, that was the photograph. It was a permanent, lasting memory captured literally just before that person was gone forever. Now look, seeing these images today, yeah, it can be a total shock to the system. You might be wondering, was this just some bizarre, creepy, macabre hobby? I absolutely promise you, by the end of our time together, you're going to see these photographs for what they really were: comforting rituals of just profound resilience in the face of unimaginable loss. But here's the thing. This wasn't some sudden, morbid Victorian invention that came out of nowhere. It actually stems directly from Memento Mori, which is Latin for "remember you must die." For centuries, the wealthy commissioned painted mourning portraits, or death masks, or even jewelry made of hair to remember the dead. So the Victorians, they simply updated a centuries-old tradition of accepting mortality. They just used brand new technology to do it. Let's actually fly through this timeline super fast, hitting a new era every 5 seconds or so, just to see exactly how this blossomed. Pre-1839, only the elite could afford those mourning paintings. Then, boom, 1839, the daguerreotype, the first practical photographic process, is invented, and suddenly portraits are accessible. By the 1860s, this practice hits its global peak. It really only starts declining in the 20th century when Kodak snapshot cameras make taking pictures of living people an everyday occurrence, right alongside, improved medical survival rates. You really have to put yourself in their shoes for a second. Back in the Victorian era, infant mortality rates were just devastatingly high. Diseases like cholera and diphtheria would literally sweep through entire communities. For so many grieving parents, a postmortem photograph was the absolute first and only visual record they would ever have of their child. It wasn't creepy, it was an urgent necessity to capture their face before they were buried. So what this really boils down to is that the camera completely democratized memory. Think about it. Before this, working-class families who lost a loved one had literally nothing but their own fading memories to hold on to. But as photography costs dropped, everyday people were finally granted the exact same power to preserve their family history that used to be exclusively reserved for kings and the ultra-wealthy. A real game changer. Okay, but as this practice naturally faded out, the internet myths, of course, rolled right in. Like, did the Victorians really use hidden wires, hooks, and these elaborate metal stands to prop up corpses and make them look alive? Let's do some rapid-fire myth-busting right now. First up, the internet loves to claim corpses were posed standing up using heavy cast iron stands. The historical reality? Absolutely 100% false. Those stands you see in old photos were used exclusively for living people. Early cameras required super long exposure times, so the stands just kept living people from fidgeting and blurring the photo. They literally weren't sturdy enough to support the dead weight of a corpse. And then there's this sensationalist myth that photographers would paint eyes onto closed eyelids to create some sort of grotesque spectacle. Actually, no. These portraits were specifically designed to be serene. The deceased were almost always laid down incredibly respectfully in a bed or a coffin, styled to look like they were just in a peaceful last sleep. The whole point was to offer hope and comfort to the family, not horror. But honestly, the biggest myth of the whole bunch: the idea that every stiff, unsmiling Victorian you see in an old photograph is secretly dead. Guys, holding a smile perfectly still for a solid minute was incredibly hard. Most of the creepy photos you see mislabeled online are actually just very uncomfortable, living people trying not to blink. True postmortem photography is highly contextual and usually features the subject in a dignified resting pose. Now, hearing all this, you might be thinking, wait, weren't they absolutely terrified of just hanging around dead bodies? Because today, death is highly clinical, right? It happens in hospitals, professionals handle it, and we are largely shielded from the whole thing. But for the Victorians, death was incredibly different. Death was a very familiar at-home reality. Families would wash the body, dress them, and lay them out right in the front parlor, which, fun fact, is exactly why we call funeral homes funeral parlors today. Because death was such an intimate, domestic, hands-on event, inviting a photographer into the home to document it was just a deeply natural and respectful next step. When you look at the psychological side of things, this practice was incredibly effective for processing grief. These photos provided tangible, real keepsakes that actively aided the mourning process. It essentially forced families to confront and accept the loss, while documenting their immense family resilience in an era where tragedy struck constantly. I love this summary so much. These photographs are a testament to human love, resilience, and the power of images to transcend death. If you just strip away all our modern anxieties about it, you realize that every single one of these photos exists for one reason. Someone loved the person in that frame so much that they absolutely refused to let them be forgotten. And hey, this isn't just some dusty, irrelevant history either. Today, these archives are absolutely crucial for genealogy and family history. Museums handle them so carefully to educate us. And as AI-generated memorial art becomes a real thing today, we're actually looking back at these Victorian photos to navigate the ethics of preserving memory. It actively promotes healthier, more death-positive attitudes right now in the modern world. Ultimately, looking back and confronting the historical reality of death actually teaches us how to truly cherish the absolute fragility of life today. The Victorians, they didn't hide from mortality. They literally looked it right in the lens, leaving behind this incredibly dignified record of enduring human bonds. Think about it. We take thousands of photos on our phones every single year, and let's be real, most of them we never, ever look at again. If the Victorians going through all that effort to preserve a single precious shadow can teach us so much about love and resilience, well, how will future generations judge the way we capture our own fading substance today? Just something to think about the next time you snap a picture of someone you love. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.